committee since its inception in 2022, and progressively, as we have grown as a campus, cases of student misconduct have also increased. So just to give you a sense, in the previous academic year, 23-24, there were 519 reported cases of student misconduct. Of these, 60 cases were fully investigated. And I will explain a little bit the investigation, but this is a kind of semi-legal process. So the investigation is very thorough. It is partly like a police full investigation with witnesses, with statements, with documentation, and then decisions based on our existing policy and procedure. There were also, as you can see, 459 cases of traffic and smoking violations. So increasingly, with shortage of parking spaces, we see a lot of bad behavior. Many different cases are reported on campus, and in the course of this academic year, the Academic Council adopted some changes to our student conduct policy and student conduct procedure. So I just want to highlight that we have these two documents. They're very specific and they outline exactly what cases are considered misconduct. The investigation of student misconduct, as you can imagine, I would not call it a full legal process, but it is a semi-legal process, especially because penalties sometimes that lead to a dismissal of a student or long-term suspension, which may affect their ability to graduate, sometimes can lead back to being questioned, being taken to court. So over the last 2 or 3 years, this entire process became very strictly documented, interviews are conducted, signatures are collected, so that there is nothing, no gap in the way we investigate a case that can open the university to any liability if a student decides to take us to court. As a national university now, any student, if they feel they were wronged by the university, now can take us to court. So I would like to review basically the updated policy and procedure, give you some helpful tips, and really I feel for the faculty because you have to deal with sometimes very bad student behavior, and so just to also give you a context of what is a case of misconduct that you should report. So there has been from the day one of the university a student conduct policy, and it basically states that all members of the community are expected to conduct themselves in a manner that contributes positively to an environment in which integrity, quality, innovation, collaboration, and so on are valued. We value integrity, we value fairness, we value good behavior, and we basically have a very detailed list of things which are considered misconduct, which should not be tolerated on our campus. And again, with the growth of our size, it becomes even more important to be vigilant. The student conduct policy sets out the student rights and responsibilities. It covers all cases of misconduct, whether it's academic or non-academic, all of it is covered in the policy. The standards of conduct, what constitutes a breach of that standard, and provides a framework for the management of the misconduct. It is available on the website. If you just Google UDST policies, it will take you straight to the student. So there are academic policies, there are student-related policies, and the policy is there. So it is not classroom management. I know some of you are dealing also with a lot of bad student behavior in the classroom. Sometimes students can be very disrespectful, they can challenge you, they can So these are areas where if you find repeated instances of bad behavior, which may become a case of misconduct. But normally the student policy will not, the student conduct policy will not cover cases of bad behavior in the classroom. Normally this is something that we leave to you as part of classroom management, where you also discuss with department head, and you can escalate any issue which you consider as a misconduct. You can escalate. So the student conduct policy is more about intentional bad behavior that is repeated. Incidentally, a number of physical fights are occurring on campus. Sometimes you don't get to see it in the classroom, but outside of classroom, in the atrium or various places of campus, parking lots, we see quite a lot, an increased number of physical assaults, for which the university has zero tolerance. So again, they're captured, usually captured well on CCTV, and we can investigate these cases thoroughly. Also cases of cheating, fraud, plagiarism, again, the policy covers those cases. So I'll start with the one area that you are very familiar with, the cases of academic misconduct, and just the policy itself is very detailed. I've extracted some particular statements about what constitutes misconduct, academic misconduct, but if you are in doubt at any time, please just open the policy. It is very helpful, and it will describe multiple situations that you can decide this is a case of misconduct. So it starts with cheating. So this is basically actual or attempted deception, dishonest action in relation to any academic work conducted at the university, whether committed on campus, off campus, online. So any student representing the university on a function outside the campus is also bound by this policy. So many examples of this. Again, you will probably, in your experiences as in the classroom, you will have seen a lot of clever moves by students trying to cheat during exams, during assessments, during quizzes. So bringing notes, copying from each other, bringing notes that they try to hide, trying to bring phones, but something that we have seen more of recently is allowing others to do an assignment for them. And I want to just alert that the way sometimes quizzes, people quizzes, are not entirely secure. And we have seen cases where a student comes and sits in the classroom, supposedly starting the quiz, then claiming that he is sick or something, goes out, gives a password to a friend who completes the quiz, logs in and completes the quiz for him from just sitting outside the room. And we saw, I think IT has dealt with this situation, but there was a peak of these incidents. Many students started doing this. They log in, then they say they feel unwell, they leave the exam, they go out, they tell someone what to do, or someone is able to log in for them, and they complete the quiz for them. And that, a lot of this is happening. Also, we've had cases where someone else will come in place of the student. Again, when the security guards check who enters, they check the picture, they check the ID card, but they don't always notice if it's a different person. And usually, especially if it's another proctor who is there, another invigilator who doesn't necessarily teach those students, that can happen. We have caught a few cases of this. There have also been cases of students swapping their names on an exam. So one student trying to help their friend, and so on the exam, they write their friend's name. The excellent student takes the exam for a poor student and writes their friend's name on the exam paper. To the extent that you can, again, I don't know, we have caught some of these cases, partly because the marking faculty then says, oh, there are ways in which we have recognized that this is not genuine work of the student because it was so excellent. It wasn't consistent with previous grades or previous assignments. But again, sometimes it shows that students are constantly thinking of ways. They get a bit desperate, they panic, and then they go and do clever things. I mean, I wish I could say they would do silly things, but they're clever things, and sometimes that cheating succeeds. So this is one. With plagiarism, again, many cases of plagiarism, we see it particularly in the first year. We don't see so much plagiarism in year 2 and onward, I think, but for CG, for example, general education courses, there is usually a season when we drown in academic dishonesty reports during an assessment, after final exams. So we try to educate students proactively. Recently, in the change of the academic conduct policy, we included one very brief statement about unauthorized use of AI. We still, as a university, have to develop our own understanding of what we consider AI plagiarism, when students go and have their entire essay or entire project written by the computer. But this particular phrase that was added to the policy gives you some ability to go back to a student and say, this is not your work, and again, you used tools to help you create your assignment, which is not acceptable. We do quite a lot, again, during the first year to train students with plagiarism, and as I said, we don't see quite so many incidents later on. Usually students grow out of it as they come into year 2 and 3. There are other areas of academic misconduct like collusion, like course materials being maybe changed, removed, some fraudulent work done, contamination of laboratory samples, selling, distributing. Again, these are considered cases of academic misconduct. Theft or damage to intellectual property is also well captured in the policy. And finally, alteration of university documents. Again, quite a few cases of students who have attempted to present a fake entrance test or a fake IELTS test. Where this happens is students come into foundation program, they are admitted there, and then they know that if they take another IELTS, maybe they can make a case to be exempted from foundation English and come into year 1. And so we see cases where students just they make a change to the IELTS report. We've seen cases where students have paid money to some con artists to do something that looks like a real report. And thankfully we have colleagues who are quite experienced sometimes to see that this doesn't look right. But sometimes the report is so real that we have had to contact the agency to verify. And this goes on, so we try to be very vigilant. So maybe you don't get to see some of this, but I'll give you an example of a student who printed a transcript, just a quick transcript from PeopleSoft, then changed it. And went home and said, I am so happy I passed, this is my grade. And a happy parent contacted the faculty saying, thank you so much, my daughter is so happy. She showed me her grade, and it turned out that actually it wasn't what the daughter took home. So again, so many instances of this type of fraudulent cheating. Maybe it was well intended. When you listen to the students' justifications, yes, they all will come with very convincing stories, but it does not change the fact that they did something that they shouldn't do, that is dishonest. So that is the area of academic misconduct. Is it easy for students to cheat? I would say not really. Any one of you who has invigilated an exam will immediately spot some strange behavior. You have a good eye for this. So for cheating during exams, for copying, bringing a phone in the classroom, usually you catch this very quickly. Remember, if you doubt anything, there is, in every classroom, there is CCTV footage. If you are in doubt whether the student did something, we can always request and view CCTV footage. But particularly for misconduct, academic misconduct, this is established through direct observation, through CCTV, through Turnitin, or sometimes when we have a student is disputing, then we may also form a committee within each college to review the case. Now, normally academic misconduct is reported in a form called Student Academic Misconduct Incident Report. This report is filed with the Admission and Registration Directorate, and it's kept on record, and it becomes cumulative. So I'll go through the penalties in a moment, but if you have a case, you file it, you need to inform the student, and the report goes to registry, and this is kept on the student record. Yes?
Is clinical practice included in these policies? For example, we have our students are required to submit a log of examinations that they perform in clinical. And we've had instances in the past where we've discovered that students have submitted examinations that they did not perform on patients. So are instances such as that included in the policy specifically?
Anything which falls in the descriptions given here, so cheating, document, alteration of documents, will fall as a case of academic.
Just looking through that again, I didn't see anything specific to that. And is there a possibility of getting
falsification of a record?
Yes, certainly. The College of Health Sciences can make a proposal for like an annex that covers the area of clinical placements for the students. So this is, again, we welcome if there are new cases, new situations, work placement, we can include this as an annex to the policy. Now, I want to say a few words about reporting the academic misconduct. So usually, again, as we have gone through the documentation over the last 2 years, we realize that sometimes we write a report, we sign it, we email it to the student, but the student then comes back and says, nobody told me. And they already have 5 cases of academic misconduct. And sometimes we have to forgive the case that is undocumented, in the sense that if the student says nobody told me and the college cannot prove that the student was informed, then we have to waive that case, we have to take it out. So over the last year, we've done some tweaking to the forms, to the procedure, to make sure that the first incident, actually previously we just signed a form, we asked the student to come and sign it, and we send them an email. Now we're going to move into a warning letter. So it's not just an email, the student will receive a warning letter from the department head. So any faculty member who captures the dishonesty must report to the department head with evidence, whatever you have, and this triggers the first incident warning letter. a copy of this warning letter report goes to ARD and proof that the student has received it either through email or a counter signature. Second incident will trigger, it's very much a similar process, but will trigger a warning letter from the dean or the academic manager. Again, we must have proof that the student has been notified of that this is their second incident. And a third, so usually, again, the first and second is, does not trigger severe, I mean, they're still penalized, but it does not go beyond the college and the student. In the case of a third incident and beyond, the college does not send a letter to the student anymore. The third incident is reported to registry and goes to the student misconduct committee. So when there is a third incident, the entire dossier of the student, case 1, case 2, case 3, will come to the student misconduct committee. So the penalties for academic misconduct: written letter of warning, loss of credit for work submitted. Again, no change in our current practice. It will be a 0 for the assignment. Second incident, written letter of warning, and the student is suspended from the course. The third incident will trigger a decision of the student misconduct committee, which can be a suspension for a full semester, it can be a suspension for a year, again, depending on the severity of the case, what students did. Sometimes, as I said, by the time we're investigating a third incident, a fourth and the fifth occur. So sometimes students, which then will generate a more serious penalty for the student. Now, there may be situations where the student would come and give you a reason. You may feel that, okay, it's better. You can give the student a second chance. If it's a first, if it's a second incident, if you find that the student was panicking and acting irrationally and you would like, but please, that is a decision of the faculty member. Once it triggers the warning letter, it enters the official record, it becomes part of the student file. So this is, right, I've just covered the academic misconduct. I'll go into the other cases of misconduct, but if there are any questions.
I recall a couple of that I had to submit, and it was in the form. It says first offense, second or third. Where can we find, as faculty members, that information?
So submit your report to, very nice question, thank you, Christina. Submit your report to the department head. The department head can look in PeopleSoft. There is a specific field, I don't know if it's visible to the faculty, but it's visible to the department heads where they can see markers on student conduct. And if there are previous cases, they will be able to see it.
Yes, Dr. Rosie, you talked about the online test, and we're doing a lot of that now because of the large number of students. One problem that we have faced is the fact that we're doing, like in this very room, we're doing a quiz, but some students at home doing the quiz. The problem is the university is not investing in IB restriction for the venue. In other organization, anybody outside this lecture theater cannot do the test because there is IP restriction and it is only applicable to this venue. So, and also another problem, the Wi-Fi of the university is not working effectively. So many students bring their own devices and it is difficult to do IP restriction with the external devices. So these are the issues that we are facing to prevent cheating. It is important the university invest with technology. I talk to people in IT and in other departments that there is the capacity to do IP restriction for all the theaters, yeah. But it requires work from IT and they don't want to do it. I contacted them, they send me to another department and the other department says, no, the IT have the ability to do IP restriction for the theater so that you have integrity in test.
That's a very welcome observation, Dr. Majid. I think when you face situations like this, my suggestion, don't try to solve them on your own. Please bring this issue to the department head, to the dean. You know, there are other ways in which we can discuss.
Yeah, I reported that to
measures
Mr.
the
Scott and
university-
Dr. Mahmoudi
Yeah.
are aware of this issue,
Yeah.
so that hopefully they
Thank you.
communicate that to you.
Thank you. One thing we don't really, I think for our college is that we don't really give that much weight now to assessments taken outside of a supervised environment on campus. But there are situations where we have to accommodate, where, you know, access is not available for the theater. So we face many operational challenges where these situations may occur. So just in general, if you do experience, please alert the department head, alert me, because sometimes gaps will manifest themselves in cases of misconduct. Gaps in our operational strength or rigor will manifest. Students will notice and they will use this call. Okay, so I am going now to talk a little bit about non-academic cases of misconduct, and there are many. And I just would like to say that please always keep in mind that the university does not tolerate cases of misconduct, whether it's academic or non-academic. We have to constantly promote this culture among our students. No one should feel that they can go unpunished for bad behavior. No one. So the policy is very extensive. I'm not going to read all of this for you, but I just wanted to give an example that the policy itself, the student conduct policy, goes at some length to describe what is considered a case of misconduct when it comes to protection of individuals. So physical abuse, threatening behavior, abusive language, stalking, bullying. Now, have you in the past year observed any aggressive student behavior, physical fights? Has any one of you happened to walk across an atrium to see students fighting? No. I'm so glad.
Unfortunately, I've seen a few students being aggressive towards security or cafeteria
Yes.
staff,
Yes.
which is, you know, you try to intervene, but they don't see them as, how do I say, they don't see them as having authority. And so, but unfortunately, it's very few.
Yes.
But that, I think that would fall into that category.
Yes, absolutely. I am so glad. I have observed that students are really very respectful toward faculty, and probably you yourselves will not see directly the cases of physical fights, but you're right, Norman. There is a lot of physical aggression towards security, especially when they're parking in the wrong way, or they're just dropping their car off and running to an exam. Previously, the security company would chase them to go and move their car, and someone would turn around and punch the security or push them or kick them, or again, the security would complain. This is usually captured well on camera, so we've been able. But also, the culture here, it's interesting whether it's stress, whether it's just feeling challenged. I find from the cases that come to the committee that it's quite volatile. Young people can be very volatile. So what is the reason for the fight? He was giving me a bad look. That's a very common thing. Bad look. So they turn around and they go and start arguing. Why are you looking at me in this way? Then there is swearing, abusive language towards family members, mother, father, and then it escalates into a fist fight. And all of this happens in 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Then a group of students swarms around. Then it's very hard to okay, who was fighting, who was watching, who was trying to separate. So it happens frequently, not so much. You wouldn't see this in the classroom, but it happens frequently on campus for various reasons, between male and between female students. So, to the extent that you can, I would just say that please promote the culture of tolerance. So really, just go away, think about it. Don't offend. Don't feel offended. Just think about it before you. Reckless, intentional misuse of personal or university equipment, harassing, assaulting other individuals sexually. Now, sexual harassment is it's a difficult area. It's very subtle. Sometimes students will come and share, they'll describe a situation that made them feel very uncomfortable, which in other cultures, in other environments will immediately be treated as sexual harassment. But in our environment, sometimes students don't necessarily know to associate. So again, it's subtle. If any of your students, particularly female students, express some concern, please always direct them to counseling, to student engagement. There'll be someone who confidentially will listen to them.
Just wondered about the fight that you mentioned. So,
Not in the classroom, but it seems in heated situations outside the classroom.
Hi, Dr. Rosie. Would it be at all possible for faculty to be given a heads up if a student has anger management problems? I've actually been escorted back to my office by students because something I have said has set off another student. And I say, well, how do you know? Everybody knows about this one. Is it possible, just for faculty safety, for us to, and I know we're getting into privacy challenges, but it's the balance between privacy and safety.
So is it possible to report the case?
Well, not report, but if we are going to have someone with, specifically anger management concerns in our class, it would
Give us a
like a
warning.
heads up, exactly.
Students with such issues will not be returning to the classroom that semester, most likely. So that usually it's the penalties are there and then the case is closed. Any kind of physical threatening behavior carries quite a severe penalty with it. We don't inform because it's confidential, but you are unlikely to see that student in the class for the rest of the semester.
I'm just wondering, all of these policies, are students made aware of them when they get admitted?
Good point, good point. We do quite an intensive promotional campaign when students join during orientation. Also in the EFFL course that we teach, which all students have to take except for health science. So I don't know where in health science you find space for this, but in EFFL and in content then we bring student affairs to come and introduce students to the policies. Now, imagine a first-year student in the first semester, most things tend to pass above them. They don't fully understand until they find themselves in this situation. So it doesn't hurt for us to repeat the message in the classroom, put somewhere in the syllabus, choose a case that you discuss in your class that will maybe involve student engagement with these topics. Protection of property. So the first one was protection of individuals, protection of property. Again, anything which is breakage, stealing, entering the university without author. Again, I'm not going to read them all. This is just a quick sample. The point of putting all this here is to show you that the policy is quite in depth. It goes into specific examples of what is considered. But one thing that I wanted to highlight is the last one, where we're seeing now false reports. So sometimes students have done something wrong, but to deflect from themselves, they go and file a complaint about somebody else. And we've had quite a few cases where we've had to investigate an alleged complaint about someone else, but then it turned out that this was the person, the perpetrator, who actually started the problem. So we're seeing more incidents of this as well. Protection of university reputation, official records, standards, functions, and so on. This is a very long list. I didn't even copy the whole information here. But again, forgery, we've seen quite a lot of this. We've had a few cases of students coming to campus intoxicated. They've been somewhere, maybe they drank something or took some substance. So again, this is strictly prohibited in Qatar. So anything like this, again, results in a very severe consequence. Videos and pictures. So that we have also had cases of students harassing other students by taking a video of them somewhere and without their consent posting it or sharing it. They create these little WhatsApp groups and then they start sharing. Again, this is illegal. Under data protection in Qatar, very severe penalty. If any student feels harassed because someone posted a picture, a video, and it's not just about female students. It's male students have come forward complaining about unreasonable pictures being posted of them with derogatory comments. So, and this again, quite a few cases of this are seen. Online resources, I think our network is pretty good. It's restricted. People cannot generally send emails to everybody, but sometimes students will or others will send an email to a large list of other recipients. Again, this is not welcome, not tolerated, and if someone is like smearing the reputation of another student by sending lots of emails to many people, that is also not acceptable. And certainly with, oh, yes, Dr. Firas?
Yes, thank you. So coming to the point of recording videos and all, we were actually discussing with Dr. Mahmoud and my colleagues. With a good intention, sometimes the students record the professor without his permission, whether it's a video or audio, and then he shares it with his students. Will that fit in here? Because in my case, I warn my students at the beginning, please, don't take pictures of me or record my voice. But can I come from legal background now and tell them do not do that because this will lead to misconduct? So that's
Yeah.
my question.
So consent has to be obtained in all cases, and if you agree, then the student also has to say what they want to use it for. If it's just for their own taking a note to remember something that you said, we increasingly record. So there are many now meetings, sessions that are being recorded for one reason or another. But consent has to be obtained, and you can always say to the student, please, I do not give my consent. And if they post something that they have video recorded without your consent, that is a case of misconduct. Was it a similar question, Dr. Magic? Yes. And finally, smoking, again, not so many cases recently. I think we have a massive campaign on campus now, which is related to students quitting smoking. But there were cases in the past of students vaping inside, smoking inside. Not so much now, but this is also covered by the policy. So, reporting student misconduct. Please, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, ma'am. I'd like to ask regarding the policies, the university policies versus what I will use the lame term, in-house rules or policies that are derived from the main university policies.
When discussing university-based...
I'm so sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Do you mind just speaking up louder? It's part of me being so nasal.
Especially, I was asking, when it comes to in-house rules or many policies that are derived from the university's main policies, how can we go about when it comes to the tangibility of it and seeking permission to apply those in-house policies. For instance, when it comes to, what is this now? ChatGPT and plagiarism. So we don't have a exact policy when it comes to that. But in-house, in our department, we have an in-house policy whereby we say a student is allowed to submit an assignment with a 20% of our ChatGPT. And if it is more than 20%, and then we do not take that assignment. But when it comes to the main policies, it does not speak about that. And there's other policies that we can craft and develop within our own departments, but they are not directly speaking to the main policies. How can we go about when it comes to this example?
It's a very good point. So first of all, until very recently, we did not have policies for everything. So because of the transformation, the transition, a lot of new policies will be just posted now. So in the absence of existing policies, we have some, but not for everything. So in the absence of existing policies, sometimes colleges have had to come up with their own solutions until a new policy is posted. As you know, we are now in the middle of institutional accreditation, so this process is now pushing the university to publish a policy in every sphere: academic, student behavior, student academic registration, academic standing, and so on. So by the end of this month, or maybe by the middle of May, the website of Udst will contain something like 20 new policies and procedures that will be available. So this part where sometimes colleges have had to come up with their own solution, interim solution, will eventually be phased out because there will be an existing policy. The second thing is now, as a national university, we have to follow Qatari legislation. So all of our policies now are vetted by legal to ensure that they follow the national laws and regulations. And third, anything that is developed like more of a situational procedure, operational manual for students, must not conflict the existing policy. Because then a student can file a case or can complain that this is totally invalid. The only policy is the one that is published on the website. If my grade is affected by some other decision of a document that was created for an operational purpose, they can dispute this and they will be right. So, but as I said, within the next month, something like 50 new documents will appear on policies and procedures, and all of us have to take some time to read them because now this provides a good framework for us to operate. Did this answer your question?
Partially, ma'am. I will
Okay,
speak to
maybe
you
we can
afterwards.
speak afterwards. Yeah, thank you. So, reporting misconduct. Anyone can report misconduct. You can just send an email to your department head, to your dean. It will reach the student. There is an email called Student Conduct email account where you can also send directly a complaint about the student. There is something in FAMIS, I'm sorry, I ran out of time, I couldn't find it, but it's also possible to submit an issue. I was looking today at Navigate 360, like raise an issue. Maybe we will add to that list of, in Navigate 360, the option for you to quickly report an incident. Now, what happens is when an incident is filed for misconduct, it will reach the student investigator. So first of all, the student misconduct complaints, a lot of emphasis is placed on fairness. So he said, she said, we hear a lot. One party will come very upset about something, they'll say something, another party. So it's all, everyone is heard, but there is a process also of fair investigation, proper vetting, verifying the information. That's why we never act on the spot. The only time when we act on the spot is if there is a serious physical violence, students can be sent home immediately and suspended for a short period of time. Otherwise, there is a proper, fair investigation. Progressive discipline is applied when a misconduct is found to have occurred. If a student has been given a decision, say suspended for the rest of the semester, dismissed from the university, they have the right to appeal. So it is, as I say, a semi-legal process. So that's why there is a lot of focus on fairness, on proper investigation, and I mentioned this, if it's an act of violence, usually students will be sent home right away. We formed a student misconduct committee, just FYI, who are the people involved in it. I chair the committee. There are members of student engagement, student counseling, legal affairs is represented on this committee. Now, this is the permanent membership. We have 2 assistant deans who every 2 years will be rotated so that every college will be represented. We have a student affairs investigator who conducts all the interviews, collects the statements, the video footage, and an administrative assistant. So basically the investigation of the student misconduct committee is such that everything will be reviewed, a dossier is collected for every case. The student committee will meet and decide the seriousness, the scope, is there enough evidence, is it a very serious case or is it a minor case where a decision can be issued immediately. In most cases, the committee will investigate more of the serious cases. The investigation will involve also inviting the parties to come and give a personal statement. So this is called a hearing. Usually the student will come alone. We do not allow others to accompany the student. But we do, then they'll sign a statement, They sign a statement they sign what they have said to the committee, which becomes part of the evidence. The decision of the Student Misconduct Committee is communicated to the student and a copy to ARD. If someone filed a complaint, we will not be going back to the person to tell them what happened with it. Again, this is for confidentiality reasons. So only the person who is found to have committed misconduct will be informed, and the letter will be a permanent record on their student file. Usually, sometimes in cases, sometimes it's like, oh, this person has appeared now for the 3rd time, a 3rd misconduct. And so again, the whole history of a student is looked at, which may lead then to a final decision. And the process is strictly confidential. So we try to ensure that whatever it is, we deal with the case, but it does not affect standing, how other students. And to the question about how would I know if I have someone seriously misbehaving, having hurt someone else, normally for very serious offenses, the result is so these are the progressive discipline, but sometimes I don't have to wait to go from 1 to 9. If the case is so serious, it may be a 9, it may be permanent dismissal based on the investigation. But generally, those are the kinds of verbal warning, written warning, formal apology, removal of privileges, suspension from participating in student activities, very important. Sometimes students reckless behavior, these students will never be representing the university anywhere for having committed some misconduct. Reprimand, suspension from the university, usually 7, 8, and 9. The committee will make a recommendation, but then it will go to the university executive for a final decision. So, have a few minutes in case of any questions.
I have a question on the
Yes.
last slide.
Yes.
Just wonder, what's the difference between points 8 and 9?
So permanent dismissal from a program but the student may still in time come back and say, I'd like to apply and study in another program.
Is there any plan for a policy for prohibiting the mobile phones in the classes? Or I mean,
Dr. Hassan, I'm sorry, I can't
yeah,
hear you.
sorry. So, yes, is there any policy coming for like prohibiting the mobile phones in the classes? Because I think many
Yes,
people here are
it's here.
sharing that. I know, but what would be the action? Because students sometimes they take excuse that we are using mobile phones to study. But actually, I found that really taking them away from paying attention to classes. So if we could have something like the faculty itself have some authority to like, or some have punishment to students who are even using. I know this is left to a person to decide, but really, I think if we have a policy, clear policy for students and prohibiting using mobile phones in the classes, I think this will be very helpful.
I'll take away this comment, Dr. Hassan. It's complicated, obviously, and sometimes students do use their devices to take notes and study and research simultaneously. It's not a phone anymore. It's just an extension of our brain, and it helps us with many functions. So, but I will bring this up because if it is affecting the effectiveness of the class, then we should have some
Yes, especially there is a policy for bringing devices.
Yeah.
So student can bring his device and use it, right?
Yes.
There's no need for mobile phone.
Thank you so much. Yes, Dr.
Yeah, Dr. Rosie, I have one issue in relation to electronic devices. Now, I feel, that's my feeling, that technology has advanced so much in cheating that we are falling behind. Like students have very sophisticated equipment to cheat. Like a small needle with a camera or glasses with a camera. I don't know where we are with these, but I want to give you one incident that I faced last term. I was doing, okay, our final exam are excellent, they are controlled, but term exam, I'm facing 30 students. I was hearing some whispering in the corner. When I go to the corner, the whispering stops. So I suspect there is some feedback coming from outside using any Bluetooth or something. So it's important to control the environment to prevent this messaging through like something in the ear. And in this case, it was a female. I cannot do anything about that. But I'm hearing some whispering. I'm very sure. I said, what is this whispering in this classroom? Is there a ghost or what? No. When I move to the other side, the whispering starts. Other things, something.
So for every one brain trying to do things right, there are probably 10 brains working how to cheat, how to do something beyond that. So I know that this is developing very fast, and sometimes we feel like we're running after. So it's important to document this. If you observe something that is not normal, that you have not seen before, please report it. Again, the easiest is to report to your department head. Sometimes we will collect this and we will see if it's happening elsewhere. We have ways to just corroborate the evidence, see if it's happening in other classrooms. What we can do is really be vigilant and know that I just want to leave you with that sentiment that the university really deeply cares that this is a safe and healthy environment, and really do not feel that if you see, observe, again, the faculty are not exposed so much to bad behavior in the same way that other staff may be. But in the areas what you see, if something doesn't ring true, then it probably is not true. So just be vigilant. There is a space where you can report, where it will be investigated. It's very confidential for data protection reasons, but it doesn't mean that it is not acted upon. Thank you so much for doing this.